Look at the sweeping expanse of the Texas-Mexico border. Spread across this terrain is one of the most sophisticated, expensive security grids on the planet. The United States government spends billions of dollars filling the sky with advanced surveillance. They deploy massive, tethered aerostat radar blimps and towering sensor arrays engineered specifically to track multi-million-dollar aircraft moving at high speeds. Yet all of that high-end hardware is completely blind to a $200 plastic toy buzzing 50 feet above the dirt. When you build a system strictly to detect massive, high-speed threats, you inherently program it to ignore small, slow-moving objects. You construct a towering technological wall and accidentally leave the front door wide open for cheap, off-the-shelf electronics.
The person
Exploiting that open door was an unemployed teenager. He realized that extracting a profit over the border didn't require moving bulky, heavy cargo like drugs and weapons. He chose a highly efficient payload: loose diamonds. You can fit millions of dollars worth of diamonds into a small velvet pouch that weighs less than a GoPro camera. They perfectly match the strict weight limits of a cheap consumer drone. This diagram shows exactly why those drones go undetected. When a radar tower broadcasts its waves, it cleanly illuminates large objects high in the sky. But when those waves hit the ground, they bounce off trees, fences, and rocks. The signal dissolves into a chaotic mess called ground clutter. To prevent constant false alarms, the computers monitoring the radar automatically filter out anything flying near the ground, dismissing it as environmental noise. This established a very strict altitude constraint for the pilot. Fly too high, and you trigger the long-range radar. Fly too low, and you crash into a tree or a steel fence. The only viable path was an exact mathematical boundary, locked precisely at 50 feet. By threading his drone along that specific vertical limit, a teenager working entirely alone mapped an invisible, zero-resistance tunnel straight through one of the most heavily guarded borders on Earth. Working completely solo gave him an enormous operational advantage. There was no radio chatter for authorities to intercept, and no waiting accomplices to trigger thermal imaging cameras on the ground. He operated as a ghost. His early runs brought in a steady stream of cash. His mindset shifted. He went from a cautious kid running careful, calculated tests to an operator focused on building a highly lucrative smuggling network. Itself breeds confidence, and that confidence led him to scale up the flights. He began packing the drone with heavier pouches of diamonds and plotting much deeper, riskier routes into the desert. Bypassing billions of dollars in government security creates a dangerous illusion of invincibility. It becomes incredibly easy to ignore the physical limitations of the very tools keeping you hidden. This map shows the new challenge: the horizontal distance, or the x-axis. Pushing deeper past the border demanded more range, but commercial drone batteries have absolute physical boundaries. Under heavy cargo, the power reserve plummets at an accelerated rate. In his rush to move more cargo, the pilot made a fatal calculation error. He ensured the drone had enough power to reach the drop zone, but he failed to account for the battery drain required to safely bring the empty device back. You can write software to trick a computer, and you can chart flight paths to evade a radar array. You cannot outsmart the laws of chemistry and battery physics. On the night of his final run, the logistics appeared flawless. The drone was humming along inside that 50-foot altitude pocket, totally invisible to the radar network scanning the sky. Then a low battery warning flashed on his screen.
Within seconds,
The motors died. The drone dropped out of the sky, carrying a fortune in diamonds, right into the dense, dark brush. This is where the solitary nature of his operation doomed him. With no accomplices on the ground to retrieve the falling cargo, the pilot had to cross the physical boundary himself and enter the monitored patrol zone on foot. While the advanced radar array missed the flying drone entirely, the human element of border security worked exactly as intended. Border Patrol agents on night watch easily spotted a teenager wandering through the scrub brush with a flashlight. A quick search of the area led them directly to the crashed drone and the pouch of diamonds. In a matter of minutes, the highly lucrative operation was completely dismantled. A highly sophisticated national security apparatus was bypassed by a teenager with a store-bought toy. Yet that entire exploit was brought down by something as simple as failing to charge a battery. This leaves a glaring issue for the future. As commercial battery technology inevitably improves and the physical range of these small devices increases, that low-altitude blind spot is going to expand. The mathematical loophole is still there, posing an ever-growing threat to how we build and fund our traditional security grids.